Hello and welcome to the AV Forums podcast, streaming live on Sunday the 6th of September. And joining me in this edition, Steve Withers.
Get your ass to Mars.
Ed Selley.
Still bulging, I see.
And Kaz Harlow.
Whatever your name is, get ready for the big surprise.
So we're streaming once again. Thank you very much for joining us if you are watching us live. If not, if you're catching up with the audio version, hello, welcome along. Thank you for downloading and listening. And of course, you can pick up the audio-only version through your podcast providers such as iTunes and Spotify. And if you're doing that, thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, you can send them to podcast@avforums.com. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're watching the video, please do that. And also hit the like button. By hitting the like button, it really does help our videos on our channel because it appears in search listings and so on, and more people can find us, more people can join in and listen to the podcast. So if you could do that, we would appreciate it.
And ring the bell. Don't forget to ring the bell so you get notifications.
Ring the bell for notifications. The like button's far more
really
important.
Annoying.
Also, if you feel like you would like to donate to us, we do have a Patreon campaign, which is patreon.com/avforums, £3 a month. And like I say, that's ongoing, so you can support us on a monthly basis. Or if you'd like to ask a question and make us a one-off donation, you can do that through streamlabs.com/avforums. And like I say, that's a perfect way to get your questions answered by the team here tonight. And donations since we were last live last Sunday, Invisible Kid donated £10, and he has a question which is soundbar related, so we'll go to our soundbar expert, Steve. So Steve, can you see the question there? Steve, are you here?
Is it on the running order?
It's on the running order.
It's on the running order.
WK950 Atmos soundbar, so no DVD past it.
Yeah, okay.
If Apple TV connected it for Atmos, what would you guys choose, Atmos and HDR10 or DV? Atmos and HDR10, definitely.
Okay, so there you go. Nice, easy answer.
If you've got a soundbar and you want to get the most out of it, you want the Atmos, clearly. HDR10 and Dolby Vision, there's not a massive difference. So, but you will notice difference in the sound if you don't have the Atmos. So, the former choice, if that's the options you're going for.
Okay, there you go, Invisible Kid. And thank you very much for your donation of £10. It really is appreciated. And we also have a new patron, Nigel Henry. Welcome to you. And last week I was misled by the voice of the gods into believing it was Neil Davidson, AV Neil Davidson, who joined as a patron. It wasn't. Because the real Neil Davidson, who joined as a patron, sent me a message during the week, which was he's actually a doctor in Newcastle. So welcome along. Thank you very much,
Nigel Henry, who I know over in Belfast. Welcome, mate, and congratulations, and thank you very much.
There we go. So thank you very much for your support. It is appreciated. And of course, if you do support us, it contributes directly towards AV Forums, growing the site, speed, features, producing more editorial content. And one day we'll produce a podcast that's professional and precise. And
keep dreaming those dreams.
I'm tired tonight. I really am. I've had a long day today. I've been out in the sun. I've been talking all day. So I've gone from not talking to anybody on a daily basis to talking to lots of people today, and I'm really tired.
So you're nice and warmed up for this podcast then?
No, I'm ready to go and have my nap. So what have we done this week? Well, I may as well start, seeing as I've hinted at what I've been doing today. So it was the Scottish Borders run today for the Car Club. It's our first event of the year, our first official event of the year. It's only September the 6th. It's been a long year so far, but we managed to all get out, socially distanced, of course. There was 12 cars in total. We drove up to the Scottish Borders. We stopped in Jedburgh at Jedburgh Abbey, had a nice picnic because the sun was out and it was nice and warm. And then we had a drive around the Borders and back down the road again. And like I say, excellent day, but really quite tiring. And apart from that, I've just been working. So
how does your new drain pipe sound?
My new what?
On your car,
the H pipe. Yeah, excellent. It's made a big difference. It basically just changes the tone of the sound. It doesn't make it any louder. It just makes it bassier. And you know me, I like my bass.
It's like
a
sub for your exhaust system.
It sounds like an old school V8 should sound. A nice bassy burble. That's just what you want, and it's there all the time through the gears. So yeah, excellent. So yeah, I've been doing that, and I watched some TV. because I've got some
Steady.
TVs to test, and I thought, well, may as well watch some TV. So I've done that. So we can talk about that a little bit later on. Talking about watching stuff, Steve will have been doing that because he doesn't do anything else, do you, Steve?
I don't, no. But
I admire your honesty, your candor in this,
look,
Steve.
why don't you stone me for being, an AV enthusiast, given that this is an AV podcast?
Yeah.
It'll never
It
catch
is
on.
my hobby as well as my job.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'll tell you what I've done. I assumed at this point in the podcast, and I know we'll talk about it again later, but I assume at this point I will be saying that the best TV I saw this week was the new series of The Boys, or at least the first 3 episodes. However, that is not the case. The best TV I've seen this week, and possibly this year, and possibly for the last decade, because I loved it so much, was Cobra Kai, which I know had been on YouTube previously, but dropped this time last week on Netflix. And they're only half-hour episodes. There's 10 per season. So I powered through 2 seasons in about 2 days. And I loved it. I know it depends on who you are and how old you are, but I grew up with The Karate Kid. I remember seeing it at the cinema in '84. And
yeah, but you were 25 at the time.
Yeah, it's brilliant because, well, a couple of things. First of all, and I don't know, Ed, I know you've been watching it. Ralph Macchio is 57 in season.
Shut up.
Season 1 and 59 in season 2. Ralph Macchio is in season 1 5 years older than Pat Morita was when he played Mr. Miyagi in the film. I tell you, I think there's a painting of Ralph Macchio in his attic because he is unbelievable. Mind you, then again, if you watch The Karate Kid, he is 22 when they shot him, but he looks about 16.
Yeah.
He's just blessed with youthful features. Anyway, the thing is that the Cobra Kai series is based on, it's for the perspective really of the villain of the film, Johnny Lawrence. And I massively empathize with Johnny Lawrence throughout the whole season. And there's a brilliant bit where he's telling one of his students the story of the film Karate Club, but completely from his perspective. And you realize that, yeah, you know what? Danny LaRusso was a bit of a prick. And he's also a bit of a prick in the new series. I thought it's fantastic. It's really good. It doesn't wallow in nostalgia. It's obviously nostalgic to a degree, but it updates everything. It brings in the modern world, changes in attitudes. It's very funny at times. The bit in the film where Mr. Miyagi claps his hands together and fixes Daniel's bad leg. Well, one of Daniel's students has got an injury. And he claps his hands together, music swells, and then he yells out, "Medic!" Which I thought was a really good twist on what you were expecting to happen. Yeah, loved it. Absolutely loved it. So I powered through that. Did watch The Boys as well. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. But yeah, my TV of the week, of the month, of possibly of the year is Cobra Kai. I've also been reading a book about the making of Aliens, which is very interesting as well.
Okay, good stuff. Ed?
I have. I've mainly been listening to music. I have also watched some television. We'll cover that in a bit. I've been doing some work for you guys and some other people. I uploaded almost my August stuff on time. I was September the 1st, which by my standards is pretty good.
Spot on.
And last night I decided to forget that I'm 40 this year. So I went out, I had an enormous curry with some other people. I drank far too much and I woke up on somebody else's sofa under a duvet cover, not a duvet. So I'm never at my sharpest.
Yeah, at least you weren't sick in somebody else's.
No, far from it. So I had a genuinely excellent night out. So that was all splendid.
Did you have to do the walk of shame at 6 a.m. or?
No, I did the drive of shame. Although I was staying in an utterly beautiful village at the top of Hertfordshire where my friend lives. And you don't, obviously, Phil, you get this every time, but you don't half feel like a complete bell end when it's an utterly silent Sunday morning and you turn your car on.
Cold start.
I get different noises to you. Mine sounds like a very, very large plumbing emergency. But I still managed to have curtains twitching as I sort of left. So yeah, that was fine. But I have had a McDonald's, as is the way of things. I've had a 2-hour sleep, and I'm having a beer now, and it's either going to be restorative or I'm going to be dead by 7:30. So.
Okay, we'll set our watches and we'll see what happens then.
See how it goes.
Kaz, what have you been doing?
Well, it's been back to school, not for me, but for the kids. So it's been a challenging week there. We've been in lockdown. The kids have been in lockdown, obviously, for 6 months, and they're back to school, both of them. School drop-off is just about the least socially distant thing I've ever seen.
Mine goes
like-
back tomorrow, and I've got these maps of how to drop my son off, and it looks like the opening day of the Battle of Kursk. There's arrows going in every direction imaginable.
It's just
horrendous.
a free-for-all. It's 200 people who all have somewhere more important to be and need to drop their kid off at that precise time. It's a bottleneck. It was absolute chaos. It's zero social distancing.
They were supposed to do it by years and half
Yeah,
hour.
none of that happened.
Staggered and
None of that happened. I mean, we've got 2 kids at 2 different schools. You can't drive to the second one because obviously you wouldn't want to drive to either. And it's 2.4 kilometers walk between the 2, and the drop off is exactly the same time. So, so needless to say, it's been challenging. But I also have watched Bill and Ted Bogus Journey. Now,
do you feel that this was the better film of the 2?
I absolutely loved it.
Good.
I thought that the first film was very disappointing for me. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't see the fuss at all. And the second film was like, you know, all those really good sequels like Back to the Future 2, Terminator 2, very clever. William Sadler's death was tremendous. Yes, it was very Seventh Seal. I mean, it had me in stitches. Kids loved it. It was very, very clever, very good. Yeah.
I always forget that he basically, I always forget that's the same guy who does the naked karate in Die
It is,
Hard 2.
yes. It is. And he even talks about his ass, yeah. But I thought that's, yeah, so I'm
Did you watch the 4K Blu-ray of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, haven't you?
I have, yes.
Did yours have a warning before it for opinions and language that people may find offensive nowadays?
Oh,
I
I think it might have done, yeah.
Yeah, no, it does. And I knew what it was going to, I thought, I know what scene they're referring to. That's when they both hug and then go, oh, you fag. And, you know, I don't know, I guess it is offensive these days, but I didn't think it required a warning.
Maybe of its time, but I suppose that's where we're at. But yeah, I can see that, and I do remember that scene. But
I'm pretty sure they shoehorn in the princesses purely to make sure that no one thinks that the 2 characters are gay.
I'm sure they do. Well, thinking about jokes like that, I mean, I'm watching a lot of Friends, and
some of that has actually dated quite significantly.
Yes, some of the jokes are pretty interesting.
Yeah, but that's always going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, if you judge everything, if you judge historical stuff in the context of the present, a lot of it's going to come off badly.
Yeah,
the Black and White Minstrel Show has not aged well, I have to say.
Although, in fairness, it was pretty crap when it was out. So
I remember watching it when I was a kid, prime time Saturday night telly, Black and White Minstrel Show. And I remember sitting there thinking, why don't they just hire black singers and dancers? Because they're really good at it. I couldn't understand the concept. I had no obviously idea of the history of blackface, but I even as a child I just thought this doesn't make any sense to me at all. So I'm glad that kind of thing's gone.
There you go.
Okay.
For many reasons, not just because I thought it was crap entertainment.
Well, we're all caught up on what we've done this week. Not a lot, as you can tell. So let's move over to
same as every other week then, really, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, basically. Yeah, what do you expect from AV enthusiasts in an audio file?
Or shut-ins.
Yeah.
What have the shut-ins done this week? Well, we've been shut in. Woo!
Yeah. The only thing is,
at the beginning of this pandemic, where all of that's going, yay, we can stay in even more than we already do.
Well, what's really annoying me is that, like you said, schools have gone back. I live next to 2 schools, and it's just been absolute chaos. I'm missing lockdown, the quiet, the nobody in the street.
I'm not. I think it's too easy.
I'm going to guess that Ed and Kaz are not missing shutdown, not lockdown.
It has amused me that the context of people worried about the risk of sending their children back to school. Right now, I'd take a 50-50 chance of death.
Even if there was bubonic plague at your kid's school, you'd give it a go, wouldn't you?
My son is a fantastic child, and I have to say he has been largely brilliant during lockdown. But nevertheless, it has been, as near as makes no difference, 6 months.
I'd go with half days. I'd be happy with half days.
No, I'm all in.
I know, but I'd go with half days. I think that would be a nice balance. and maybe slightly less crazy on the drop off. But
well, we'll see.
Yeah.
But no, as I say, hopefully that the schools can stay open from this point. I mean, as I've said, we've had at various podcasts. In the context of the effect on my son's education, he's 7 this year. So it's not that catastrophic. But if you are for older children, I mean, losing 6 months of schooling is brutal.
Yeah.
So I mean, I do hope for the sake of people in more critical exam years that they do keep everything going this time around, and not simply because I don't want to keep homeschooling.
Well, certainly for those in bad postcode areas.
Well, see how it goes.
Okay.
'Cause that's how they judge the marking, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, let's hope that we don't have to do that again. But let's see how we go. So,
Can I move on now? Is that all right?
I suppose.
Right. Current competitions, people, they want to win things. So what can they win, Kaz?
You can win a copy of Once Were Brothers on Blu-ray, 23rd of September. 3-film DVD box set of The High Note Yesterday and Dreamgirls. That closes 15th September. Win a copy of Criterion September titles on Blu-ray. Safety Last, Showboat, and Beau Travail. That's 6th of October. Win a copy of Fifth Element on 4K. That's 15th September. Spartacus on 4K. 10th September. Deathstroke, Knights and Dragons, really good, on Blu-ray, 10th September. Five Graves to Cairo on Blu-ray, 8th of September. Pitch Black on 4K, 8th of September. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure on 4K, 8th. This is the most 4K we've ever had.
I was looking at the competition prize earlier and thinking, actually, that's a good set of prizes.
Yeah. And Criterion's August titles on Blu-ray. Lady Eve, Marriage Story, Taste of Cherry, 8th September. We're also doing the podcast exclusive competition at the end. Win a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog on Blu-ray. Stay tuned for that. All competitions open to eligible AV Forums members resident in the UK.
Well read. Any previous competition winners?
Yep, Fat Dragon 1966, excellent name, won a copy of A Rainy Day in New York on Blu-ray. Jim Reaper, quite aptly, won a copy of The Woman in Black on Blu-ray. And Gavsky won the podcast exclusive limited edition Blu-ray box set of Walkabout.
Okay, there we go. That's competition winners. Well done, everybody. And lots for you to go and enter. We'll be back in a sec with some hardware. Right, so we're going to move on to do some hardware. We will come to your questions at some point this evening, probably a little bit later on. And if you want to ask questions, that's a perfect time to make a donation as well. So please think about doing that. Streamlabs.com/AV Forums for a one-off. If you want to ask a question and make a donation at the same time, it would be appreciated. So thank you very much for that if you do that. So we need to move on and talk about some hardware. So we'll come up and talk about some AV kit in a sec, but it was IFA this week. Although, to be honest, you wouldn't have known it.
Not a vintage year.
No, got to say, I missed my German sausage. I did. I missed my currywurst.
There actually was a show, wasn't there? There were people actually in
Yes.
Berlin.
There were people out there, a handful of people from the UK.
Young
were out
people,
there.
mainly.
Young people, yes,
That's the risk.
it was actually.
Like Becky Roberts, in your 20s, you'll be all right, love.
Yeah, be fine. So anyway, there was some announcements. The thing is, it's not all happening at once because there are some announcements coming up this week, the 8th, Tuesday. There are a few embargoed news stories to go up and some announcements to be made there. Somebody asked, will there be new projectors announced this week? Tuesday. Look at the homepage, Tuesday. That's as much as we can say because of NDAs and all the rest of it. But yes, have a look on Tuesday at the homepage. Right, so IFA, I only did one of the press conferences, Steve, which was the Philips launch event because I'm just too busy to do all of them.
Was that the Choose Your Own Adventure?
It was Choose Your Own Adventure. It was really well done. I mean, it was all pre-recorded, apart from the Q&A sessions, which were done, funnily enough, on the Zoom calls, which were the normal workshops. So what normally happens when you go to IFA is, especially if you're hosted by a manufacturer like Philips, you go across, you do their press conference, and then you do some workshops. And the workshops are usually targeted at what you cover. So in Steve and I's case, it'd be TVs and soundbars and AV kit. And you go and you see the new products, you're given demonstrations of the new products. And then after a while, those are available for review. So it was much of the same thing, but this time around, they did it where you could choose whether funnily enough, if you wanted to stay in or if you wanted to go out, and what type of person are you? Are you somebody that likes to watch TV or listen to audio and that kind of thing? So you could choose what announcements you wanted to see. And to be honest, you got to see them all anyway. It didn't matter what choice you made. They would do the bit that you chose, and then it would segue into the bit that you missed. So you didn't miss anything. It was really nicely done for something that was online. The Philips have put a lot of thought into it, and it was well designed, because I have sat in one other this week, and it was basically a Zoom call, and I didn't really get much out of it. So it was nice that Philips took the time to do that. The reason I didn't do any more than those is because Andy covers the news, Andy Bassett, and he did the other press conferences and put the news stories out. And if you missed out on anything with IFA, it's all in the news pages. So if you go to the menu at the top of the page on AV Forums and click on news, and you can pick your TV news, home AV, hi-fi, that kind of thing. So what stood out for you, Steve, this time around at IFA when it came to product? Because you sat in most of them, didn't you?
Well, I sat in a few. I mean, there wasn't that much. I mean, like I said, it wasn't a vintage year, but to be honest, I wasn't expecting, even if we hadn't had the pandemic, it wouldn't have been a vintage year, because there hasn't been a ton of stuff in 2020 anyway. I think it's been more of a holding year than a revolutionary year. Philips has some interesting stuff. They had two new soundbars which support IMAX Enhanced, which I believe is a first. I don't think I know of any other soundbars that do IMAX Enhanced. So I mean, there have been a couple more announced since then, but I think they were the first. And at least one of which has detachable rear speakers, which is very cool. Something they've done before, actually. So they actually kind of pioneered this idea. They did it a few years ago on one of the Fidelio soundbars. So they look interesting. Couple of, they're the new flagship, well, not flagship TV, is it? It's actually kind of just below the flagship.
Yeah, the flagship carries over this year. So that was the 984, which you reviewed last year, Steve.
I did, yes.
And the TV for this year is the OLED Plus 935. So I had a look at the 934 last year, cracking TV with the Bowers and Wilkins soundbar. And what they've done this year is basically updated it. So it's new drivers, new subwoofer. They've tweaked the audio a little bit and the soundbar. And the TV should be round about the same performance as the 805, which I reviewed recently on the site, maybe a little bit more peak brightness, but that looks like a stonking TV. And I have been told that provisionally I should have a review sample at the end of this month. So looking forward to that one. Yeah, no,
the audio on the TV I reviewed last year was hands down the best sounding TV I'd ever heard. This kind of does something similar. It's not quite as, the drivers aren't quite as big or as powerful, but it's got the center channel tweeter is outside of the cabinet. And this, unlike that TV, this new TV has upward firing drivers. So you get front height channels as well for Atmos. So yeah, if that sounds half as good as the other TV, this could be an absolute cracker. Yeah. And like I say, it also adds height channels, which is something the other TV didn't have. So yeah, that looks cool. The soundbars look good. There's a new, I mean, Samsung's press conference in terms of products. They talked about the Q950 TV, which we've already reviewed, the Q950 soundbar, which the review went up just after the press conference and finished. So we already covered those. So the thing that was interesting and new, I didn't know about it already, but it was they've got a short laser projector coming out, 4K short laser projector called the Premiere. So better deliver, boys, if you're going to call it that. And I believe this is the first projector that also supports HDR10+. So it will support dynamic metadata.
But presumably not Dolby Vision.
That's a shocker, seeing as it comes from Samsung, Steve.
You would have thought that, eh? So this is, I'm assuming this will be, I mean, again, not a big surprise, because LG have just done a short throw laser projector, which I reviewed a month or so ago. So not a massive surprise that Samsung are also doing one. They look, I mean, I've only seen the specs for the Samsung so far, but they don't look dissimilar in terms, you know, the short throw laser projector, 4K support, HDR. The Samsung has the edge in terms of it's also got HDR10+ support. And the Samsung also has their acoustic beam technology built into it to you know, give you a more immersive sound stage from the projector. The LG had built-in sound too, which actually wasn't too bad. Obviously, if you're going to go projector route, for God's sake, get a big sound system to go with it. But if you can't for some reason, that's certainly a nice alternative. I mean, these kind of projectors are designed for people who want the, you know, the the interaction, because it's got smart platform as well built into it. Both of them have. So you want the kind of features of a TV and the big screen experience without having to pay through the nose for a really, really large screen TV. And they don't take up much space, unlike, say, a projector.
And these don't come with they don't come with their own screen, do they? Because some of these projectors, like
Hisense
Hisense's
does,
version,
isn't it? Yeah,
they
these
come
don't.
with a screen. No,
you could basically use a white wall if you want. I mean, I'd always suggest get a screen because you'll get a better picture out of it. But you could just use a white wall. And it goes up right up against the wall. I mean, literally centimeters from the wall. So in that sense, you can push it right out of the way. It's not going to take up any space. They are. I mean, based upon, I mean, obviously I can't comment on the Samsung yet. I haven't seen it, but based upon my experience with the LG, they do make a viable alternative to a TV, but clearly they're relatively bright, but they aren't that bright that you could watch TV. You can watch TV in daylight, but it's never going to look as good as it will when it's nice and dark in the room. So bear that in mind. But an interesting product. A first, as far as I'm aware, from Samsung. I don't think they've done.
They used to do projectors in the past, although
years ago
we didn't necessarily get to see them in the UK, and certainly the professional side they did quite a bit. Optoma also, they announced a laser projector short throw as well. So there's lots of these now coming along into the market. It seems to be there is a market for it. So it'll be interesting to see those projectors, and hopefully we'll get them through for review during the winter months when it gets a little bit darker on an evening and we all spend time watching films.
It's starting to get dark again now already.
I know, it's shocking, isn't it? 8:30 and it's pitch black.
I can tell from this podcast we start in daylight and it's getting dark by the time we finish it. TCL, they were pushing their mini LED, so not to be confused with micro LED, which is obviously a self-emitting technology. Mini LED is basically an LCD with a LED backlight, but a lot of LEDs, like 10,000 LEDs. Be nice if they actually sent one out for review or had some in the UK at all, really.
These are going to take a little while to get to the UK. I do have a TCL sitting right behind me on the stand there. That's the C851. So I've been working on that review this week.
The ones I've seen have been pretty solid, for
I've got to say,
budget TVs.
I've got to say it's edge lit, which I thought, oh no, edge lit TV, 65 inches. You're going to have inherent problems with HDR. No, because HDR is only it's under 400 nits peak brightness, and of course peak brightness isn't the be all and end all when it comes to HDR. We keep saying this and keep trying to drum this into people that peak brightness is just one part of it. Because it's 300 odd nits, 380, I think, or 390. I don't have my notes in front of me. You don't have the issues with the edge light because obviously it's not getting overly bright for that to become an issue. If it was 1,000 nits brightness, it would be an issue for an edge lit TV. So in terms of HDR, it's not going to be mega bright, but 65-inch real estate. It has a Freeview Play tuner. It has all of the major catch-up services, obviously. It has Disney Plus and Netflix and everything. And I think it's 700 quid for a 65 or 800 quid for a 65-inch. That's amazing value.
It's ridiculous.
That is insane.
And it's also got an Onkyo soundbar built into the bottom. And it sounds really, really good. So you're looking at this and you're just thinking, well, yes, it's edge lit. Yes, there is a bit of light pooling in that now and again. But you know what? As a living room TV to be used in conditions like my room is now, perfectly acceptable, to be honest. So yeah, TCL, I'm impressed. I wasn't expecting much, and I'm impressed. So it'd be nice to see the micro LED.
Well, their high-end kit looks amazing.
Yeah,
doesn't it? In
does.
the spec terms, you think, like, I really want to get my hands on something like that and see if it's as good as it looks. Because 10,000 dimming zones, and quantum dot LED. So you've got really wide color space, very bright. You kind of think like this could be this could be an amazing performer, but we just haven't seen them yet. I don't even know they've even been released in this country, have they? I don't think they have.
No, they haven't. But that's another thing you mentioned there, quantum dot. I mean, this TV here, it's quantum dot. It's got a quantum dot film. under £1,000, and it's quantum dot QLED. It's impressive what they're doing. I would just like to see the high-end stuff. I saw it at CES back in January. I saw the concept screens, but also saw the TVs that are released in the States. And they were at that point talking about it coming to Europe, although I think COVID's gotten in the way of that, and it might roll into next year. But it's impressive technology. I'd really, really want to spend some time with it. And some of the concept stuff was as thin as an OLED, had just as good black levels as the OLED. The viewing angles weren't great, but sat head on. The blacks were excellent. But what really was impressive was the amount of brightness and the color volume. You could really notice the difference in color volume when it was up against an OLED. So yeah, impressive.
In their press conference, they also said that they are going to be doing quantum dot OLED. So they're working on that as well.
Yeah.
And
I
they've
think
got a couple of, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I'm expecting something similar to come officially out with Samsung at some point as well, because the rumor is that they're also working on that technology and fast tracking it. So we'll have to wait and see if that does
TCL
happen.
also announced a new Atmos soundbar, the TS8 1100. They've got one before that, which I'm supposed to be getting any day. Another Atmos soundbar that they've got, so that'll be interesting. See what they sound like. And then Denon, they didn't have anything major announced, but they basically got a 110th anniversary kind of line of sort of collector
AV amplifier. And
an AV amplifier and a CD player.
turntable, is that?
Yes, there's certainly a stereo amp and a CD player. Don't know about the
stereo amp and CD player, earbuds, and the AV receiver are the ones that I saw. And they're kind of, they're anniversary editions. But I think the AV receiver, I don't think is any different from what's the current line, but it's just an anniversary edition of what's currently available.
I've seen the photographs; they look really, really nice.
Nice, yeah. And then, from my perspective, the big news of the week was JVC, who have announced that they'll be releasing another major firmware update for their N series, so the N5, N7, and NX9.
And it's good if you've bought into the projectors. It is good that this is now the second year where they haven't replaced them. It's nice to see that they're supporting the technology. And it's a big chunk of change. Even the entry level N5 was $6.5, $7 entry, and then the one you've got, Steve, the N7 is $8,000. Is that right? $8.5. So that's a big chunk of change. To get that into your cinema room. So it's nice to see that they're supporting the technology with not a new model every year that you feel, well, I haven't got the latest one. So, and then obviously residual values and everything else. Yeah.
I'm delighted. Yeah. So because last year they announced the Frame Adapt HDR update. And this year what they're announcing is a customization feature. So there's a few things that they've announced, but the main thing is that what you'll be able to do now is input your screen size, and it can work out the throw distance, and then it can basically work out how bright your image is, and then it can then use that when it's adapting the tone mapping for HDR. So you should get an even. I mean, the performance is already amazing, but you should get an even better performance with HDR than we are currently getting. So
it'd be interesting because obviously LG have used this approach with their OLED, Steve, with the Calman AutoCal. So you input the exact,
you measure it and then input it,
peak brightness, and then it adapts the tone map. JVC are not doing that approach, but I think that would be an interesting angle to take as well if you actually measured the bulb output from your particular projector and then adjust the tone map.
They're not doing that, taking that approach for the simple reason that this approach, the one they have gone for, means that anyone can do it. You don't have to have a meter to measure the light output. Anyone can just input the screen size. They can input, I mean, it's going to take into account things like the age of the bulb and the screen size and the throw. So from that, it can work out, roughly how bright the image is. And then, I mean, there obviously will be variances, but it can roughly calculate it, and it doesn't require a meter. Anyone can do it, and I suppose that's their approach. Yes, it will be more accurate if you measured it with a meter. And I noticed people moaning about saying, "Oh, well, they should have done it with a meter," but come on, guys, this is a great new feature.
It'd be nice if that option was there, though. Especially for professional calibrators,
because they got the AutoCal software, so they could even do it as part of that.
Yeah, it'd be nice if they could fix or give us an option to do the gamma droop without having to use the spider and go use the software. I don't like that approach at all. I'd much rather use my meters that we've spent lots and lots of money on to be able to use them rather than a spider. Anyway, is that everything from me for Steve?
That's all I saw.
Yeah, I can't say I noticed
can't think of
anything
anything
else.
else off
Well,
my head.
the only other thing that sort of it had been hinted at an earlier online press conference, but Technics has got they've released more details of the SU-R1000 reference class amp. So about €8,000, integrated amp with digital inputs, as is now the trend. It's an interesting piece of kit because it would be the easiest thing in the world for Technics to just mine tradition, go back to their class AA and things like that, and do that. And obviously they have stuck VU meters on there because they're not stupid, but it's a very different €8,000 amplifier to what you might to what some of the competition's doing. They've very much gone their own way on the topology, the layout, the power supplies, and things like that. It's going to be an interesting product. If I can get a sample and have a tinker with it, I will. But that's perhaps the hi-fi highlight of IFA, such as it was.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on from IFA. If we have forgotten about anything, or anybody has any questions, then obviously put that into the chat window if you're watching live, or send us an email, podcast@aviforums.com. If you have a question you want us to look at next week, we'll certainly come back and circle around if we have missed anything. Bowers & Wilkins 702 Signature Z.
Yes. The signatures are hot rodded, customized editions of the existing 705 and 702 speakers, which continue on sale. They are not being superseded by the signatures, they're being augmented by the signatures. Driver layout is the same. Their differences mainly stem to some revisions, some quite significant revisions to the crossovers, and a new finish. Now, this is the bit that's killer with the finish. I'll go on about this in the review. I'm not going to paraphrase the whole review here. It simply isn't worth it. You can read it. That's what I do. But I do say, and I do genuinely mean this, if you asked a semi-lay person, someone who has an understanding of what hi-fi is, but isn't heavily invested in it, you ask them to envisage a high-end speaker, it would look like that. It's beautifully made. I mean, the finish is exquisite, and what Bowers & Wilkins do supremely well is they avoid the things that would cause, that there's that always inevitable feeling of not necessarily buyer's remorse, but that feeling of vulnerability when you've handed over an enormous sum of money and you just got a huge box or two boxes or whatever, and you're just like, I own this now and I've parted with a fortune. Almost every aspect of how they come out of the box, how you get them together, staves off that feeling. They congratulate you on your purchasing decision and the rest of it. They are, as a piece of furniture, as an object to live with, there's very little remotely close to the price which gets anywhere near them. I mean, they're exactly the same price to the penny as the Focal Cantor #1, which lives here as a test speaker, and unquestionably the Bowers & Wilkins feels more special. Sonically, it's a damn good speaker, and the signature tweaks to the crossover. It's very together. Historically, you often had Bowers & Wilkins speakers sound, the more drivers that were involved, sometimes it sort of affected how cohesive and together they sounded. Not an issue here. It's a very, very well sorted loudspeaker. Doesn't have it all its own way. Compared to the Focal, I would say a little bit down on detail, and obviously it's an apples with oranges thing. A two-way stand mount is always going to feel a little bit faster, but it's a tremendously capable speaker. The only thing I will say, and it's just popped up on the YouTube thing, all the photos of the 702 signature do not include the plinth. There's very good reason for this, because the plinth is enormous. Without exaggeration, the footprint of these speakers is absolutely vast with the plinth attached to them. Huge. So you will need to have a look at the size of the plinth and work out if the speaker is going to fit where you think it's going to fit, because they are big lads once they've got the plinth on. That's something to consider. But equally, it does mean that even if your children are miniature stuntmen, I don't think they're going to knock them over. So, the Bose has done this for a reason. They're not being obtuse. So that review, I believe, will be going up presently. And it's a tremendously good loudspeaker. Obviously, Bose has been in and out of the news for reasons other than making loudspeakers over the last year. And you can't help but feel that the 702 and the 705 signature, they're just a reminder to everyone that when Bose gets back into its comfort zone, it still makes astonishingly good products. I think that's a very deliberate reminder that there's quite a lot of life in the old dog yet. So I think that's what they've done.
Okay, so Bowers and Wilkins 702 signature, the review will go up this week. What's the price on those, Ed?
£4,500 to you, sir.
Okay, cheap at half the price.
Look, it's only money. You can't take it.
Exactly. So yeah, thanks for that, Ed. And like I say, the review will go up this week. Before we move on and finish off hardware with my review, there's a quick couple of questions that have come in, along with some donations. So Pulp Fiction, thank you very much. No, it's Pulp FNX. FNX? Pulp Fiction. Yeah. Yeah, Pulp Fiction. Donate £10. Thank you very much. He says, good evening, gents. Hope you've been well. Yes, we have been. Thank you very much. Heard anything about Kef's metamaterial absorbing technology trademark and new products?
Not as yet, though. I believe that as and when they are ready to tell the world about it. But yeah, they've been in, obviously material sciences has always been a big deal for Kef, and yeah, they're keeping busy. So I think there'll be some more information on that in due course.
Okay. Condu 007 donated £5. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. He said, would you guys spend money on a 4K TV now or wait for 8K? 4K. I'd go out and buy a 4K TV now. 8K is coming. There's no doubt about that. It's going to get forced into the market the same as 4K was back in the day, and eventually things will move over. But I think that's still some time away yet. So one company, Samsung, are really back in 8K. Other companies have 8K panels, but they tend to be on the larger side, which means more expensive side. It's going to take a while for that market to move on.
Until there's some proper content.
Exactly.
There's not going to be any reason to get one. And to be honest, with the possible exception of games, and even then I'm dubious that we're going to get much in the way of 8K gaming. I mean, if you ask a gamer, they'll say, what would you rather have, 8K or
120
frame rate?
frames?
They'll say higher frame rate.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah. Yeah, I think in the absence of, I mean, it's different with 4K because there was clearly 4K content coming. Even stuff shot at 35mm was 4K. So there was a lot of content there. There is really very little, almost none, in terms of, apart from a bit of broadcasting in Japan. But in this country, no.
Yeah. So 4K TV all the way, and like I say, it's going to be a matter of time. You could have a 4K TV for 5 years before things are going to move anywhere close to 8K. So yeah. And a lot of what Steve said is very pertinent there. Fergie B has donated £5. Fergie, thank you very much. It is appreciated. And this one's for Ed.
Yes.
Do you want
where's this one? Right. I haven't heard this. Do you like Stephen Seals, particularly the solo debut? And there's a second part for Steve here as well. I haven't heard that yet. I've got a recommendation coming up for album and thing. I've been on a bit of a retro bent this last week gone. I picked up 2 more of Joan Armour Trading's back catalogue because she was interviewed on BBC 4 a couple of weeks ago, and it reminded me that I have some of her albums and not all of them. And she's just a magnificent, transcendent talent. So I bought 2 more of those. I've just been listening to a lot of Joan Armour Trading this week. So but I will, once this podcast is over, assuming I don't immediately need to pass out, still a bit variable at this point. I'll have a tinker through with that. And then there's a second bit for Steve as well at the bottom of that YouTube thing. Sorry, at the bottom of our video.
Yeah, I'm reading it now. Steve, is it a given that Spartacus Jaws will upgrade to UHDR iTunes? I don't know. I don't think it's a given. I mean, I know Apple are pretty good at if you buy. I mean, I don't really use them that much. Kaz, you use them a lot? Kaz?
Reaching out for the mute button. No, I don't. so I don't have the correct answer for
I
that
don't know,
one.
to be honest. All I can tell you is that the discs of those two films look absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
So let's hope
I
they
mean,
do.
Yeah.
I've
So,
never found anything comparable to disc, really.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you've ever come
But
across.
Apple do have a pretty good record of
They do,
giving you
yeah.
a
do.
4K
Yeah, they
version
do,
if you
but
buy a movie.
They do,
Um,
but it's not.
It's not guaranteed though, and sometimes I have heard stories of things, 4K versions disappearing as well, and that's the problem
Yeah.
with these online. With when you don't own something physically, you never guarantee that's what you're going to get forever. And that's why I'll keep buying discs as long as I can. And given that there's not that many coming out at the moment, I'm just buying everything at the moment. I'm back to
We're back to the good old days.
Yeah, back to the good old days. I feel like I got to get in there and support.
There's quite a few new ones that have been announced.
Cracking stuff coming out.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, Back to the Future.
We'll come back to that in a bit.
There is that someone. There was another question asked from me, which I'll question for Ed. I'm looking for a new phono cartridge for around £500 to go on Project RPM 5, mainly considering the Audio-Technica AT33 PTG2. What are your thoughts? The PTG2 is a really, really good cartridge, but please, for the love of all things, are you a steady-handed individual? Because they are unthreaded. They do not have a threaded body, so you need to use a nut and a bolt to fix them, and it is not an easy cartridge to fit. So forewarned is forearmed on that. There is a new Audio-Technica cartridge, which it sits alongside it. It doesn't replace it. There's the OC9 series, the OC9 XML, which is 480 quid. That's a magnificent piece of kit. Really very impressive indeed. And it's an excellent cartridge, but I don't know how it'll work on the project. So I don't know if anyone's ever tried it, but it would be remiss not to mention the Rega Ania, which is £499 exactly. And that's a magnificent cartridge, but I have never, ever tried it on a Project Arm. So I don't know how that will fly. Whereas I know for a fact that the Audio-Technica cartridge will work perfectly happily on a Project Arm. So hopefully that's of some use to you.
Okay. Thanks for that, Ed. And Gordon Wheeler asked, will I be reviewing the Panasonic X 800 TVs? Yes, I've got one in, 58-inch. It'll be sitting next to the TCL in a few hours while I do some side-by-side testing. And
What
then
a
I'll be reviewing
curious
that.
size.
Yes.
58.
58. It's
Panasonic has got form on this.
Yeah, it's panel size for them. So yeah. Right, so that is coming up as
Actually,
well.
Gordon Wheeler also asked, how do I feel about not having seen Tenet at the cinema? And based upon the reviews, Gordon, I'm pretty comfortable with not having seen Tenet at the cinema.
Yeah, and I just seen Condo 007 who has put a donation in this evening. He's also asking about Disney Plus and 4K via the SkyQ app. I'm having real problems with this. My box is on the latest firmware. It's a new 1 terabyte box, and Disney Plus is HD only and not HDR. So it's supposed to be HDR and it's supposed to be up to date, and it's not. So if you're having problems with it, join the club, because I am as well. And I've given up.
Burn your SkyQ box and get an Apple TV. That's what.
Obviously, our new Patreon Nigel has asked. It's a very complicated question. It's going to require the input of Steve, I suspect. About.
Oh, I was going to make you do this.
But well, obviously, yeah, because I'm so big on Atmos. I mean, obviously, my answer, Nigel, is just buy an enormous stereo. That's turntable money, mate, that you're talking there. But it comes down to whether you'd be updating.
What's the question?
Right.
Because
if one was lucky enough to have 20k budget for an upgrade, 10k upgrading Bose & Wilkins 804s, HTM3s to similar D3 models, with the remaining 10k split between receiver cables, ceiling speakers for Atmos, or keep the original fronts, 12k on the Lingdorf processor with remaining towards suitable power amps. I have a sneaking suspicion that having played with them, you'd say Lingdorf on that. But
well, I've also seen Nigel's setup, and he's got some good speakers already. So my advice would be get the Lindorf.
Yeah, I would have thought that was the given. It does seem to be a seriously impressive.
And we're not on commission, any commission.
No, I'm not. Unfortunately, I am not on a commission. But yeah, if you've got that kind of dough knocking about, Nige.
Yeah, I've got to say the Lingdorf MP40 is just blown me away. It's absolutely brilliant. It really is. Right.
I know there are people that will go on about, well, you can do more tweaking and all this sort of stuff for the Triumph, and you absolutely can. And if you want to spend days, months, years going down a rabbit hole with that one, free boots. But if you just want to set up a processor, run through Imperfect, which takes a couple of hours, depending on how many speakers you've got, and then sit back and just enjoy amazing sound, That would be my personal preference.
Yeah, got to say it is.
Are you suggesting that the end result and not the journey is the goal here? Because that flies in the face of everything I understand about the hobby.
At this stage of life, Ed, I've got to say, you know, if I haven't learnt the skill by now, at the age I'm at, I just want ease of use.
Have you done your Dirac running yet, Phil?
That's my plan for this week. I've been trying to get these TVs out of the way, so I say that, and then two, three more turn up.
I'm setting an ad on Friday. Actually, I'm setting you a challenge here, Phil. If I can make Dirac work, and I am fundamentally
I've got no
dumbest man alive,
I've got no issues. It's just finding the time to sit down and actually do it at the minute. That's what I'm finding. But I need to do it because I need to do the review before the editor's choice. So yeah, I need to get stuck in.
But Pete, it's funny what you say about this. You know, you reach a certain point. It's people occasionally with the Rega Planer 10, which I reviewed for you guys, and you know, it's a magnificent. And people go, "Oh, if you took the budget and you did this and this," but the Rega comes out of the box. It comes out of the box like the world's most beautiful Meccano, and it goes together immediately, simply, and then you can start listening to records. For sane people, where the object is to listen to the records, not pontificate over a spirit level. But I appreciate that there's 1,000 different ways to crack this particular nut, and I imagine that obviously AV calibration is exactly the same thing.
Yeah, but after 35 years of that, I just want to sit back now. Yeah. We've reached a level now, haven't it, where the quality is such that I feel I'm getting an experience in my home cinema. Sorry?
You're splitting hairs, basically.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you're really, the performance we're getting now is, I mean, you can spend more money, like Nigel's question, you can blow a lot of cash, but you can get an amazing level of performance for a relatively small outlay now in terms of, you know, 4K, Dolby Atmos, etc. And I can honestly say with my hand on my heart, I think, because going back to that question about Tenon, you know, I've got a home cinema at home now where the experience I'm getting is better than most cinemas I go to, particularly the Odeon in Bath, which is terrible. So, and I don't have to pay 15 quid for the privilege. So from my perspective, yeah, I've reached AV nirvana, and I'm happy to sit back now and just revel in it.
Well done.
Right, okay, we've got 9 minutes, so I need to talk about the Sony A8, which is an OLED TV, which I reviewed last week, and I'm writing the review this week. I'm almost finished the review. The review will go out this week. So yeah, it's a new OLED TV from Sony. You kind of know what to expect now from Sony's OLEDs. It's a rectangular display. It sits on nice feet that are just raise it above your mounting surface if you're not wall mounting it. You can change the feet around if you want to run a sound bar, but that kind of defeats the object of having a Sony OLED, because the party trick with the Sony is the fact that you know, the whole screen is the speaker. It uses actuators and bass and two subwoofers at the back to create the sound. And the effect is, and we discussed this a few weeks ago with Steve putting in a acoustically transparent screen in his home cinema so you can have the speakers behind the screen. It makes a difference when someone is talking on screen and the sound is actually coming from the center of the screen where that person is. It's a strange one, but it works and it's fantastic. There are some new features on the A8 over last year. So the AG9 was the flagship TV. It carries over to this year until Sony replace it. But a lot of the features from that TV move down. So the X1 Ultimate processor, it moves down. You've got object-based super resolution, object-based HDR remaster, super bit mapping, 4K, HDR and dual database processing, pixel contrast booster. You know, there's lots of these technologies on board. It also does an Apple AirPlay 2 and HomeKit, 55, 65-inch screen sizes. The new features are X Motion Clarity, which is basically 120 Hertz variable black frame insertion. We've already seen that this year from LG and Panasonic, and Sony's version is just as good. I mean, the motion on Sony's TVs is usually first class, no exception this time around. You get what you pay for with Sony, which is, you know, a nice accurate image. There's no filmmaker mode. Sony are not doing filmmaker mode this year because they have their own custom mode, which they think is a little bit better than filmmaker. So
Sony going their own way? No, Phil, that's unprecedented. It's never happened before.
So the only thing that A8 doesn't have is the Master Series logo. So it's not a Master Series display, but it does have, like I say, all the features that were on last year's and continuing flagship, the AG9. So it adds in IMAX Enhanced. I don't know what that does other than just a
I bet it's,
certification. Doesn't do anything.
Or Gustavo said, IMAX enhanced. What's the point of it? Good question.
Yeah,
mate.
well, audio-wise, DTSX, there is an extra layer in that. So that is
apparently it puts
feature
bass into pretty much every channel, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Which
But that is an
doesn't make a
added
lot of
feature,
sense.
though. So it is something that does exist. So if you've got an AVR that's IMAX enhanced, it's more than just certification. With the displays at the minute, it's just certification. It doesn't do anything to the image. There is no picture preset or specially calibrated mode for IMAX enhanced. What IMAX enhanced does with the video side of things is they actually do it in the mastering suite. So they have noise reduction technologies and so on that they are trying to encourage post-production houses to use on IMAX enhanced discs, and they are very few and far between at the minute. So it has that on board. It also does Calma and AutoCal support. I'm trying to think what else it's got. Oh yeah, and it's got the Netflix calibrated mode, which the last year's 8 model didn't have. This year does have that. So yeah, it's
filmmaker
upgraded
mode though, is there?
Full set,
no filmmaker.
full set of on-demand services.
Yes, so it has Android 9 Pie. You get Google Assistant, Google Play Store, Chromecast built in, and then you've got Netflix and Disney Plus and everything through that. And I've got to say, this this TCL sitting behind me, Android 9 Pie, and it has all the same features and a lot of the same apps available on the system as well. So the Sony is very, very good. It's not laggy anymore. It's nice and quick. You can go from app to app, no problem, which had been a problem in the past. So yeah, it's a nicely designed screen. The acoustic surface audio is fantastic on it. It's not HDMI 2.1, although HDMI 3 will do EARC. But it doesn't have any other features, so there's no variable refresh rate or automatic low latency mode or anything like that on it. Although it will play back, and I did test this with a Meridio, it will play back 1080p at 120 hertz. So I've got 2 clips on the Meridio that I can test the TVs with, and it will do 120 hertz. So it might do 1440 by 120 for gamers. So that might be of interest to people. Like I say, motion, fantastic. The black frame insertion, 120 hertz black frame insertion works incredibly well in the low and medium. I wouldn't do high, it flickers too much in high, but certainly the first 2 you can mess around with. Just bear in mind, don't use it with HDR because it does dim the set down, because obviously it's in certain black frames, but it does work without flicker in the first 2 settings. I'm trying to keep it because I want you to read the review, but I'm just picking out the particular highlights here. So in terms of peak brightness, now we did mention this earlier on. Peak brightness it's an interesting measurement to make. It's not the be all and end all. If a filmmaker decides that he's going to do a grade on his film and it doesn't go anywhere over 200 nits, that's creative intent. That's his intention. That's what he wants. So, but if it's in a HDR container, what it will do is it will have the expanded PQ EOTF. So you will get more detail in the darker areas of the image. And this is one thing that people seem to completely forget with HDR is in the darker areas where your eye is more sensitive, because your eye is not sensitive to brightness. You could go from 500 nits to 650 nits. I doubt you would notice the difference in terms of those brightness and peak details. Where your eye will notice a difference is if you're going from video code 16 to video code 74 in terms of the darker area, mid-tone, the area of the image, you're going to notice that. You're going to notice more shadow details and so on. So, yeah, I think too many people are getting hung up on peak brightness numbers and nit values, where there's a lot more to an HDR experience and PQE2F and everything else, what it's capable of. So don't get hung up on numbers. However, saying that, let's look at the peak brightness on this. So 1% window with 640 nits, 675 nits on a 2% window, 620 nits on a 5%, and then 575 on the industry standard 10% window. What does that mean? It means it doesn't have an aggressive ABL kicking in, because the full field is 160 nits, which is a full 20 to 40 nits brighter than
That's on the high side.
Yeah, full 20 to 40 hertz more than LGs and Panasonics this year. Now, why are Sony doing this? Sony are doing this so it tone maps in a certain way, which it might measure low, but actually when you watch it side by side with a Panasonic, like I did with the HZ1000, there is more there in the peak brightness and peak highlights. There's more detail available. And when it goes to full white, there's more brightness available. So Sony have tinkered with the panel. That's the way that they want to do it. That's the way they want to tone map HDR material. It does it the same for 1000 and 4000 mastered content. So it doesn't change the way it's doing tone mapping. It's trying to get as much detail as possible from the HDR image without clipping out the highlights. And like I say, people get hung up on the brightness side of things. Where the Sony is really, really good is in the mid-tone area of an image. Lots of detail in there, which gives it incredibly deep and depth to the image, which is fantastic. I've got to say, I was really impressed with the A8, the image quality. It's very, very close to Panasonic this year in terms of the color accuracy and just the way it expresses color. You can measure 3 TVs and they'll give you, same measurements, but there's also, how each of these brands do color. And it's very, very close to the Panasonic. Really nice image. So overall, I'm really impressed with the A8. It's another cracking TV. And although it's not a Master Series model, you've got loads of features on there. Another interesting thing that is missing is Dolby Vision IQ. But from what I've seen on LG and Panasonic, you're not missing much.
No, not really.
My advice would be Dolby Vision dark mode and then set the panel luminance for your room that you're watching the TV in. Far more accurate than the light sensor. And the thing with Dolby Vision IQ on both the LG and the Panasonic so far is that it's had picture processing switched on and grayed out, as well as frame interpolation being added.
Most egregiously, the frame interpolation you can't turn off.
Which you can on the LG, but you've got to go all the way around and go into the AI services menu and switch off genre and then go all the way back and then switch off True Motion. When it comes to Panasonic, I can't believe a company like Panasonic who says that they are, with creators' intent, would add processing. But at the same time, Dolby is supposed to be all about creators' intent and so on. So somebody's decided that they're going to have this processing on and grey it out. So I hope they would bang their heads together and realise.
Just don't tell Ryan Johnson and get very upset.
Yeah, bang your heads together, folks, and give us the option to switch all these things off. We don't want processing on accuracy and so on. Right. So the review will be up this week if you want to get into more detail and so on. And we're going to movies next. And I made my first mistake of the evening because it's not movies, it's software. Because we're going to add Ed's music choice, and not just Ed's music choice, but we all listen to music. I certainly do on a daily basis. Been finding out lots of new groups and so on. And I know Ed is always pinging recommendations my way, and sometimes I'll ping. If I ping it back to Ed, he's usually already knows about it or so on, has more recommendations for me. So we're going to do this weekly now. Ed, what has popped up this week in terms of music that you think everybody should go and check out?
Tricky, one word. No, not an answer to the question. The artist. Tricky has been releasing stuff first with Massive Attack and then as a solo artist now for 20-something years. But he has released an album this week. It's called Fall to Pieces. It is 29 minutes long. It is not an easy listen. It was written largely in the immediate aftermath of the death of his daughter, aged 24. And you need to listen to it in the context of that because that's what it is.
I didn't know any of the background. You sent me the album through. You said it's a difficult listen, but give it a listen. And I listened to it straight away because it's not a long album. And I didn't know what to make of it. Some of it was really interesting, and other bits I really didn't get. But then when you put it into the context, you explained it to me, then it made a lot more sense listening.
It's bleak. There's no getting around that. But it is potent. It's creative. It gets an enormous amount done in 29 minutes. It doesn't need to be any longer than that. This is going to be something where it's getting decent critical acclaim at the moment. My outside bet. will look back on this as being Tricky's equivalent of Nick Drake's Pink Moon, which is iconic. Again, incredibly self-contained.
Drake died quite soon after that.
Well, let's hope the Tricky doesn't do that. But nevertheless, there is an element of it just being a perfect piece of catharsis. As I say, please don't go into this expecting. I mean, Tricky's done some. It'd be wrong to say that he does happy, but there's more bombast, more oomph to most of his stuff. But this is a truly extraordinary thing. It's my easy tip of the week. There's been some other good things coming out, but that would be my the one that I would flag up as being well.
How would you rate it in comparison to his earlier stuff? Because I mean, Massive Attack is possibly one of my favorite.
Well, absolutely,
and Max Inquire is phenomenal, but I haven't necessarily got along with Tricky much afterwards.
Now you see this. I would say that there's, in terms of how some of it works, there's more callbacks to, ironically, some of the older stuff. I mean, my favorite Tricky album is Blowback. I think it's unbelievably good. But nevertheless, if you listen to this as a fan of Max and K, you'll spot some of the calling cards and some of the some of the things that hark back to that. But you, as I say, provided you listen to it under the context of understanding sort of how it came to be, I do think you'll find it worth the effort, Kaz.
Yeah. Please don't Google Tricky, Steve.
I'm not going to. Listen, I told you this before. My musical tastes are skinny white boys on guitar. It's as simple as that.
No, I just don't want him to die.
Any other tips musically from anybody here? Anything popped up?
No. I'm just one album of the year. It was Mike Scott, Water Boys, last week. So that's me good for till next year, I suspect, when the next Mannix album comes out. I only buy albums from 4 different the Mannix, Mike Scott, posthumous Bowie releases.
Well, okay.
I'm a little bit constrained about what the kids like, but I've been playing the tune they put for the trailer to Wonder Woman, which is a remix of New Order's Blue Monday.
It's a good remix.
By Sebastian Baum, although I'm not going to pronounce her name, otherwise I'll set her off, but she doesn't respond to Sebastian Baum. She'll only say Sebastian Boom. And it's interesting because if I say play music by Sebastian Boom, she goes, I don't know who you're talking about. But if I say play this track, she'll go ahead and do it. And I think it's absolutely tremendous. It's a fantastic track. And it's not in the movie, which is...
Yeah, but that's often the way for trailer music.
It's just absolutely phenomenal. It's possibly one of my favorite trailers of all time. Perfectly set to that music. But
I mean, I would say, I just on another one, I would love to give a hat tip to, and I will get their name, because let's be semi-professional about this. I'm trying to be semi-professional about this, except it's not bringing up my conversations. Carl Sushi was kind enough to point out that a band that I've referenced in a couple of reviews, American band All Them Witches, has released a new album, and it's all right, pretty good, but it's not a patch on their last effort, imaginatively called ATW for All Them Witches. But the new one is called, hang on a second. This is a great thing about having Rune on your computer. I can just tap straight to it. New album's called Nothing Is the Ideal, and that's pretty good as well. So that's fine. Phil has rejoined us in the lower formation now. So
Yeah, it's an annoying thing.
I'm on point now. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, on you go then, Ed.
We could all close our videos, and then Phil could move back round to
Yeah,
it's a bit like
go for a
Celebrity
breakout.
Squares.
I'll be in the pole position.
Yeah, that's
But if you're top left, you've got to present the show. So on you go, Ed.
Well, aren't we moving on to we're moving on to films now? Surely.
Perfect segue there.
So yeah, I mean, admittedly, I don't know what the films are, and I'm somewhere.
Well, it's on the running order.
Yes,
Big one this week is Mulan.
There we go. Right, off you go, Kaz.
So it's been interesting. I mean, it's generated a certain amount of debate, but I saw Mulan. It's 20 quid. It's a premium purchase if you want to see it before December. Saw it with the whole family. They absolutely loved it. So that's 4 through till my age. And
you are your age. That's profound.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with that. So, but yeah, 4 to 42. So that's a pretty good range. Everybody was gripped. Really enjoyed it. I was surprised it didn't just do a blow-by-blow Lion King style remake.
But it couldn't really because they didn't have the talking dragon voiced by
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy
No,
called
yeah.
Mushu.
but I mean, I got some immediate Crouching Tiger vibes, and I know
Oh,
it's
it's
not.
got a lot of the Wushu
Yeah.
movie vibe to it. And it
Have you
looks
seen
like
it as
they
well,
spent some
Steve?
serious money on it. Yeah, I watched it last night
And what did you think?
and thoroughly enjoyed it. Oh, it's not a film I was particularly interested in. I've seen the original animated film once, I think,
Yeah.
when it first came out. Didn't think much of it. But, you know, I thought I'd give it a go. You know, I'm going to go to the cinema. I can sit at home and watch it in the comfort of my own home. And it looks and sounds spectacular. And they've clearly spent a lot of money on it.
Yes, it looks like a cinema movie, which is
Yeah, no, it is. It is a cinema movie. I think they spent like 200 million on it. This is not a cheap film. It surprised me how much I enjoyed it because, like I say, it wasn't something that was high on my list of things to go and see. But I thought they did a pretty good job. And it's got some cracking Asian actors in it as well. It was nice to see Jet. I didn't recognize Jet Li actually initially.
no, neither did I. Yeah.
And Gong Li, who I'm a big fan of. It'll be interesting to see how well it does. But I think the film itself is perfectly watchable and enjoyable. And I guess a lot of people will probably just wait till December because they're not that bothered. But
yeah, but I mean, there isn't that much out. I mean, I appreciate the mentality of waiting, but I think a lot of people, certainly with families, should probably just
there's
go
four
ahead
of you,
bite the bullet.
like you, wife and two kids. That's a £5 each. Well,
that's good
deal.
value.
That's definitely better value than going to the movies.
Yeah, exactly.
And you don't put your health at risk. So
yeah, and it was a proper good night's entertainment. I'm really surprised that people are balking at the idea of paying for it in that situation. I can see if it was just one person, but even then, you know, over lockdown we've had loads of premium video rentals. I put it down to the fact that Disney have made it an exclusive and not given people the option to see it at the cinema. I think if they gave people the choice, people wouldn't see this as a downside. They'd see it as a really nice option if you don't want to risk going to the cinema. But instead, because people don't have the choice to go to the cinema, they're seeing it as this big jip of having to fork out 20 quid when you could see it for free on a service you're already paying for. But I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I don't think they'll release any stats about it, but I think the proof will be in the pudding. So if they stick, what's the new one, Soul? They stick Soul on Disney Plus.
Soul is
that's the next
new Pixar movie.
Yeah. If they stick that on Disney Plus rather than to the cinemas, then we know that Mulan did okay. If they stick Black Widow on, then we definitely know. But I mean, if they stick Soul on, I think.
Well, Soul, they could probably save. I mean, 2 Pixar movies in 1 year. They could probably just push Soul into next year as being next year's Pixar.
Yeah, they could.
Movie.
But it'll show that Mulan did good numbers.
I think if Black Widow pops up in November, we'll know it did really good numbers.
Yeah, we'll know it did really good numbers. Yeah.
That's pretty much a given, isn't it? So.
But yeah, it would be nice. I think I said this last week. I don't understand why, under the current circumstances, studios and cinema chains don't just get together and agree, right, we'll do cinema releases under COVID conditions, and we'll also give people the option to just rent it at home, because I don't think people should have to take the chance of putting their health at risk just to go and see a film at the cinema. It's not fair.
Do both. Give them the option.
No one's going to blame you for doing that, and I think you basically win both ways then.
Yes, and in the opposite circumstances with Bill and Ted, the latest Bill and Ted, there's, you know, people are upset because we don't have the choice here.
Well, in America they are doing, aren't they? It's a cinema release and VOD. Yeah. Here it's just a cinema release, and I'm livid because I was looking forward to watching it in my home cinema.
Yeah,
and I just suggest that there's a nature that I wouldn't necessarily swap the circumstances under which they've reached that decision in America. Let's be very clear about this. There's an ambiguity because at the time we're recording this anyway, things seem to be going adequately well in a COVID sense. So, you know, it's going to lead to more difficult decision-making processes, whereas in the United States at the moment, it's still a relatively straightforward decision to go, do you know what, you don't have to go to a cinema.
True. I mean, I'm just curious to see as you say, right now in this country, things are reasonably good, but numbers are beginning to tick up again. We're going into winter.
We'll see how it
November
goes.
when Bond's supposed to open again. It'd be interesting to see where we are in terms of cinema releases.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see where we are in November.
Look good in the trailer. I thought the trailer looked the dog's bollocks.
Yeah, it does, and I guess it will bring the crowds in. That's the thing. Whereas Tenet, I don't think.
No, Tenet is not the same as Bond.
I don't understand why everyone was banging on about Tenet being like, the film that's going to save cinema.
Kaz?
Really? I know it was mainly Kaz.
Because it's the biggest movie, isn't it? It's the biggest movie.
It's Nolan.
No,
but I don't think Nolan's had a couple of big. I mean, you can't count Batman. So what does that leave him with? Inception. As being
the biggest
one
movie that
highbrow
cinemas
action
have
film.
had since COVID. That's all I meant.
Yeah. All right.
But
okay.
So
Bond, I think, has more mass market appeal.
True, but they weren't.
And it looks a lot more exciting and entertaining in the trailer than Tenet does.
Yeah.
It's got bad form though.
I don't know, Phil. Did you see it's got the old version of the Maserati Quattroporte in the trailer? One of the worst cars ever made. Gets the Bond treatment. I was quite taken with that.
It's got the worst poster designers ever. He looks like he's walking a dog.
Who looks at posters nowadays?
I wouldn't even. Poster design is in a sad state of affairs. I remember the glory days of Drew Sturzan and the 80s when they had amazing posters, and now they are just photoshopped abortions, aren't they? They really are.
Really but the thing was, when you go back to there, though, Steve, your cinemas did put posters outside to attract you. So that hasn't been the case for quite a number of years now. I wouldn't even know what the posters are.
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah,
they line them all
posters out, but I mean, poster art is just a sad state of affairs now because it is. Sometimes it's always like you got a shot of an actor, probably just their face, the body's probably somebody else. They look bored shitless. They just bung them all in. I mean, like you say, the ones with Daniel Craig, it doesn't look like he's walking a dog.
Yeah, it does look like he's, or something worse, but it does look like he's walking a dog. Just off screen, the dog, he's got the lead.
He's got the lead.
I have a horrible feeling that just off screen as a kid in a toddler, one of those little baby things that you keep control of a kid with. Because there are rumors that Bond's got a kid in this film. Yes. It's like, please don't do that. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. Where are we with discs, Kaz?
Sure. Okay. Well, Total Recall's coming out. I mean, there've been some amazing announcements. There's been a whole line of really good announcements, including King of New York and Crash coming to 4K from Arrow, which just is tremendous news. But Total Recall from Studio Canal, so they're the studio that always give you Dolby Vision on cult classic action movies. I mean, they've done Rambo, they've done Cliffhanger, they've done Leon, they've just done Fifth Element with the horrendous cover art. They're doing a new fat Flash Gordon style 50k set, 50 quid set, not quite 50,000.
50 quid.
Yeah, 50 quid set, 5 discs. Appreciate 2 of those are the CD soundtrack.
Is it a double CD soundtrack? I can't even remember the main theme from that film.
The main theme is great.
It is great.
Really good theme.
Yeah.
One of Jerry Goldsmith's finest hours.
Well, I mean, he appears to have done the same theme tweaked for almost all of Arnie's films, but they are great themes. Because I had a Goldsmith highlight CD.
A Russian couple won the figure skating world championships to the Total Recall main theme. I was just blown away by that. It's like I don't care if they skate or not, give them the medal.
But yeah, it looks really good. Atmos and Dolby Vision, and done the works on it.
So 5 discs. Does it presumably have a really extended how to make a puppet of Arnie with the eyes going when he's out on the surface of Mars? Spoilers.
I suspect it's got an entire featurette called 2 Weeks. Yes. And it's it's easy.
The feature or whatever happened to Rob Bottin.
It's easy to get to 5 discs, isn't it? If you stick 2 for a CD.
Michael Ironside, the man, the myth, the legend.
He's a legend.
He is a legend.
But yeah, I mean, it's tremendous that they're cracking out all these old titles. So
but the thing is, are you able to get this without all of the extras and palaver?
Yeah, you can. But you can get 3 disc sets, so the Blu-ray, the 4K disc, and the Blu-ray of special features. Yes. It's a steelbook.
You can get a but they've recently announced the 2 disc set Flash Gordon. So that's. They did the big box set of Flash Gordon and they did a steelbook of Flash Gordon. So the box set was 50 quid, the steelbook was 30 quid. but now they've done like the normal standard release, they call it. So Studio Canal will probably do a total recall release 3 months after the first release for those people who don't want to spend 50 or 30.
All right, so I can get Flash Gordon without spending a ludicrous sum
You
of
can,
money.
yeah.
on
It's
stuff I
just
didn't
been
need.
announced. Yeah,
Right,
you
cool.
do
Lovely.
need it. So the same, I suspect the same will be the case for Total Recall if you don't want that. I mean, I have to say these box sets, they're a pain to do anything with.
But
as
there's
much as I
also,
want
do
stuff.
you not think that this also, that there's an exercise in them learning from some of the lessons of music releases here, because you get
Tat,
well, not, no, I think that's the wrong phrase. For people who
lavish tat.
live the you know, they live the artist. I mean, obviously there's these Prince reissues doing the rounds, and my brother is, you know, my brother is an enormous Prince fan, and he has no difficulty in buying the 5 or 6 disc rework of, I mean, there was, it was 1999 was the first one. I can't remember what the next one is, but then you, for people who I'd like the album in the best possible context. I don't need 800 bootlegs to go with it. So you end up with this parallel release process. You get all the trimmings thing for people who want that sort of thing, and then you follow on at a respectful distance with the bare bones, you know, remastered, jigged up and good to go release.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's a lot of tat for a lot of money. 30 quid extra for tat.
Oh,
I would rather just have the 3 discs.
Yeah, yeah.
The special
I mean,
features in the film.
It's
The problem is that the Steelbook, is the artwork on that the same guy that did the artwork for?
No, I don't think so. That guy.
I don't like it though. I just don't like it. I don't like Steelbooks, to be honest. I know people don't like it, but it's not my cup of tea.
No, but I mean, Mia Jovovich isn't in this, so we should be okay. There's only so much.
I've got to say that cover art for Fifth Element was
terrible.
Horrible, yeah. It's
Awful.
100 comments worth of horrible. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Given it's one of the, also, you know, it's a shame on one of the most beautiful films of the last 40 years that you end up with, you know, a sort of bad stencil.
Kaz, it was the best joke I've ever read from you in that thread when you asked him if he was a fingers guy.
Well, I couldn't believe someone liked it, but yes, it was interesting. But we've also got Mad Max. We've got the Resident Evil
US
collection.
release or UK release? Or
it is only a US release in October, but I don't think there's been much that's stuck to that. I guess Ghost in the Shell is coming out, and that's
so. And when you say Mad Max, are we talking
first one,
the original,
first one,
original one? Yeah, I know we want Road
Warrior. One with Toe Cutter.
No, Kaz, we've had this conversation. We've had this argument before. The first one is perfection. And I know the second one is more spectacular, but the first one is perfection. It captures a society coming apart at the seams rather than something which is completely collapsed. And it's magnificent.
Now it's a documentary, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's more of an instructional guide these days. But you know, for whatever, the first one is absolutely, and the opening 15 minutes is just one of the greatest cinematic sequences there's ever been.
Yes. So there's that. I am very much looking forward to Mad Max. I do hope they announce the others, but I am very much looking forward to that.
You mentioned Back to the Future earlier on, the trilogy, and I was thinking about it because I had to look at it earlier on. I might have been looking at the Steelbook, I'm not sure, but it was 70 odd quid. I'm not paying that for 4K discs.
35 quid for the normal
Is it?
3 discs.
Right.
Yeah, I think the Steelbook trilogy comes with 3 Steelbooks. Really irritatingly, you have to put them together and they form the picture of the DeLorean. I can't imagine anyone who's got the shelf space to have the 3 Back to the Future.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, get the normal one.
Tomorrow, my Hitchcock box set arrives.
Oh, is it available already? Oh,
yes,
it comes out tomorrow.
Simon should have it tomorrow. Yep.
The Birds, Rear Window, Vertigo
and Psycho. Yeah,
and Vertigo was shot VistaVision, so that should look pretty stunning.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a definite purchase for me. That's my Christmas present to myself this year.
Good.
It looks great, but I'm a big.
In a moment of weakness,
Northwest.
I ordered the 10-movie Friday the 13th box set from the States.
Well, if we're doing moments of weakness,
mainly to get the 3D Blu-ray of Friday the 13th Part 3.
That's a lot of discs to order for that.
I know, but I thought Christmas present to myself. That's my view.
If it's any
There's
consolation,
nothing else to buy.
No, come
Steve-
on, look. This year we've got Hitchcock, Ghost in the Shell, Home Alone, Whiplash.
There
Full
is some good
Metal
stuff coming, but
300, Requiem for a Dream, District 9, Back to the Future Trilogy, Dawn of the Dead, Mad Max, The Resident Evil Collection, V for Vendetta, Westworld Season 3, King of New York, Total Recall, and Crash.
well, if you put it like that, Cass.
Steve, if it's any consolation, I have spent, including the delivery cost for something which will not turn up to November, I spent £32 on the Taylor Swift folklore vinyl. So
you need psychiatric help. You really do.
And on that bombshell. Right, there's something else in the run order. I don't follow this at all, Kaz, so maybe you can explain it to me about the Blu-rays.
It wasn't Cass, it was me.
Yes.
Oh, was that you, was it? All right.
Well, no, I was because nothing new has been coming out recently. You know, no new films have been coming out. Cinema, therefore, no new discs have been coming out for the new films. I found myself watching a lot of my older discs recently,
Right.
and two things have occurred. Two things have occurred to me. One of which is more obvious than the other. First of all, obviously, picture quality on a regular Blu-ray is significantly better now than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So watching older Blu-rays that came out, say between 2007 and 2010, you know, a lot of them, the prints were still a bit ropey. You know, the transfers weren't great.
Yeah.
They look soft. They look they look much better than DVD in some cases. And you think, yeah, okay. And if you look at a regular Blu-ray now, even for an older film, it just looks immeasurably better. But the thing that really occurred to me was, and I think it's a bit like the story of the frog and the saucepan of water, and they gradually turn the heat up and the frog sits there and boils to death. I think they have, you know, and people have been saying this for a while, and it's been mentioned even in threads during these podcasts, that they're filtering out a lot of the bass on modern soundtracks, on disc soundtracks. And watching some of my older Blu-rays, my God, there was a lot of bass in those soundtracks. They're right. I think they've been gradually decreasing over the last decade, particularly over the last 5 years. I suspect because they think, well, most people are going to watch it on a phone or a tablet or a laptop, and they've got a soundbar or a TV, and they take the bass out. They filtered it out below, like, I don't know, 30, 40 hertz.
AV is having the exact same external challenges that music had to power through in the early years of the century. Ironically, now we are having an absolute golden era of absolute lack of dynamic range compression. It's fantastic, but my God, we suffered in the meantime. I think you're exactly right, Steve. It comes down to, I think phones and tablets are not necessarily the consideration point. It's more the sound. I would say it's more
TVs
the
and soundbars.
TVs and soundbars. That's the driving force for Blu-rays, rather than the download versions of things. But nevertheless, it's something that guys are going to have to power through, and I don't. That's not as easy a thing to do as it was with dynamic range compression on 2-channel. So that's
not always the case. I mean, yesterday before I watched Mulan, I watched Sherlock Holmes and Sherlock Holmes Game of Shadows, cracking discs.
Doesn't it when they fire the big gun in the second one?
Oh, there's a serious, particularly boss. Sherlock Holmes. Old Guy Ritchie's not mucking about with the bass in that one. There is a shed load of it. It's great, and also looks gorgeous as well. After both those films looked fantastic. And also, I was watching it, and in the first one, you know, you only see Moriarty in the shadows in the first film, and I was watching it. It was like, that sounds like Jared Harris's voice.
They re-recorded
he wasn't cast as Moriarty. They did. I got my old disc out, played the scene back. They re-recorded it with Jared Harris's voice, so there's continuity between the two films, which is quite
clever. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was delighted because I was watching, thinking like, that sounds like Jared Harris, and it was. So, but great discs. I was dubious about buying them. I only bought them basically because there's nothing else to buy, but I'm glad I did because they look great. They look really, really good.
Oh God!
Also, watched Beetlejuice, which looked fantastic as well.
It's interesting though, Steve. I think the soundtracks are the original soundtracks, aren't they? So we talk about.
That's what I'm saying. They haven't been messed with.
No,
they're just the same soundtracks.
From one of the most interesting Hans Zimmer scores, the first Sherlock Holmes.
I think the first one in particular, I think, is a cracking film. I really enjoy it.
But as I say, in terms of Hans Zimmer not necessarily just being Hans Zimmer,
yes, it's not a Hans Zimmer typical score.
Really impressed with it, and he did that almost chronologically back to back with Rush, which is also a magnificent Hans Zimmer score.
They're doing a third.
Although one I'm not allowed to drive to anymore.
Well, they're supposed to be doing a third. Yeah, I should imagine that wouldn't be such a good idea. They are supposed to be doing a third one, Kaz, but God knows when.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Got a bit of a backlog, haven't they, right now in terms of film production?
Yes. Yes.
Right, we need to move on because I've just looked at the clock and I'm thinking, my God, we were doing well, and now we're not. Right. So, TV-wise, what have we been watching this weekend?
I have been also watching Cobra Kai, but Steve's eulogized about that already. I haven't got anywhere near the boys. I have been watching the now 2 of the 4 episodes in on the Netflix Chef's Table barbecue fire cooking sequences, and the first 2 episodes are just jaw-dropping. I mean, obviously they're beautiful because food doesn't move terribly fast, and now they've got fire to play with as well. But the stories in the first 2 episodes, just extraordinary. Netflix really is killing it for documentary content, so that's fine. And then this is a niche one. I've been rewatching on More 4 the River Cottage Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall series where he was vegetarian for a summer, because I have been eating less meat for the last year, really, but I needed to refresh my ideas and so on and so forth. It's a friendly reminder that Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall's recipes that pop up in television programs are incredibly easy to follow and don't rely on you being able to find, unicorn hair or some other ridiculous ingredient. For the most part, it's very prosaic things done carefully. So if you're scooting around for ideas for food, most of the River Cottages are on More 4, and there's some really good ideas there. Bit niche, I know, but I've been enjoying it.
You'll be glad to know that I'm not going to mention Forged in Fire this week.
Well,
because I've mentioned it enough. What I have been watching on Netflix, funnily enough, you mentioned it, Ed, was Rust Valley Restoration's new season. Season 3 popped up. I didn't even know there was a season 2, so I binged season 2 over the weekend, ready for season 3, and it's really good stuff. You would love it.
Yeah, it's on the list. But you know how it is, Phil. When I'm not eating, I watch television when I eat. Which is a bit of a weird one, I grant you, but there you go.
Okay.
The moment I don't, I switch to listening to music. I just plowing through all the music. I'm the audio Steve. Steve has been plowing through his film collection. I have been reliving some vinyl brilliance.
Right. Okay. That's a recommendation from me, Kaz.
Yeah, I mean, Tom covered The Boys, so I haven't got around to checking that out. That's the new one. I assume you started it, Steve.
Yeah, I watched season 1 again this week, and then watched the first 3 episodes that are currently available. I don't understand why Amazon are doing it once a week.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
It's not they've bought it from somebody else and they have to do it when it's broadcast in the States, like Picard. It's an Amazon production. But anyway,
because it's pulling you back in to look at other things.
Yeah, I know, but Amazon doesn't. No one does. Amazon pays monthly for that. They just pay for the annual Amazon Prime fee.
No, but it's pulling you back to the service to actually watch other things on it.
Maybe it looks good though. They've clearly spent some money. It's funny. It's gory, over the top gore, just like the first season, which is great. I do feel though, and this is a problem with all TV series really, but you kind of feel like, are we ever going to get to the end? It's like this is just going to go on and on and on, isn't it? And I kind of prefer a beginning, middle, and end. Get it done, 8 episodes. Whereas I'm 11 episodes in now, I suppose, over 2 seasons, and they really haven't achieved much.
Yeah, it's tough these days. It just seems like a really ongoing 5-season arc that you're dealing with. It'd be nice to have a TV season which finished after season 1.
This is why
that way they do Stranger Things. Yeah, each Stranger Things season is a confined.
An American Horror Story used to do it very successfully as well.
They do a great thing. Do you notice, Kaz, that they've cancelled Altered Carbon?
Yes, I did.
I'm not surprised because season 2 was not very good.
No, I'm not. But the end of season 2, I mean, set it up to be amazing in another season.
Well, unfortunately, they looked amazing and thought they couldn't afford that.
It happened, yeah.
But I mean, Steve, if the comics are anything to go by, nothing changes in The Boys. And I dropped off.
And I've got to say that I
read those.
Slightly putting me. I mean, I watched it because why not? It's there, and it is funny. It is funny, and I love the over the top gore. But I get the feeling we're not really going anywhere with this.
No, they didn't either. I think
off the back of Cobra Kai, which was just pure magic.
It is a joyous thing, and there's so many lovely touches. The fact that for Phil and I occasionally watch the regular car reviews things. It just absolutely down the line that of course he drives a a slightly shagged Pontiac Firebird, because that's just what he drives. So yeah, perfect. Thoroughly enjoyed that. Great soundtrack as well.
Steve, I watched that documentary you recommended last week, the one about Carl Beach.
Oh yeah.
My God, there was some
of the worst policing I've ever seen in my life.
Jesus. You know what happened there was they were so scared to make a mistake, they made huge mistakes.
Yeah, they made nothing but mistakes.
Too busy trying to cover their own arses. And obviously the climate at the time was Savile and everything. Oh, shocking. Absolutely shocking.
They didn't even do the basics like medical.
No, like seize his phone and computer and stuff. And
we'll ask his missus.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
talk to his wife. Even I mean, basic policing. I mean, I'm not a copper, but I think I could have done a better investigation than those guys did.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's the climate that, because politicians and everybody else get involved with these things and all, they try to be so thorough that they miss huge areas.
There are some very public figures who I do not believe have been correctly held to account for how seriously they took that, in the absolute absence of actual tangible evidence.
Yeah, exactly.
And they know who they are, so that's fine.
Yeah, let's not go down that route.
I just want to quickly say, Stephen Huxtable, when we were talking about box sets for discs, said, when is the Emmanuel box set coming? Funnily enough, Stephen, last week I was overcome with a sense of nostalgia and whimsy, and thought maybe I didn't actually do it in the end, but I very nearly ordered, because Kino Lorber in the States have done Blu-rays of Emmanuel 2 and Goodbye Emmanuel, which is the 3 Silver Crystal versions, uncut, and I thought, I remember watching them when I was a kid. Should I? And I didn't, but you know what? When we finish this podcast, fuck it, I'm going to go and order those discs. I'm just curious to see what they look like now.
Oh, curious. That's the word for it, is it? Fine. I do
old school soft poured. You can't go wrong with it.
The thing is, actually, the thing that always stands out for me rewatching them is that fundamentally the soundtrack just sounds like an early Air album. It's like Air took all of their initial sound cues from the Emmanuel soundtrack, but by the by.
Yeah, I apologise for the F word being used there as well. Right, so what was I going to say? Steve VR.
We're allowed to swear, just not too much at the beginning.
All right, okay, fair enough. We're getting close to watershed, so we'll let you off on that one. Steve VR, he donated £5. Thank you very much, Steve. And he says he always looks forward to and enjoys your content. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It is appreciated. Thanks for your donation. And don't forget, you can donate and ask a question, and we'll get round to it. Even if you only listen to the audio version, you can do that during the week and send us your question when you make your donation, and we will read it out the following week's podcast. Right, so we are going to wrap up before we do the podcast competition with looking through just and see if there's any questions that need to be answered this evening, because I noticed that we have been really busy on the chat, so thank you for taking the time to use the chat facility and ask your questions. Gordon Wheeler's asking me, 75-inch TVs get reviewed once COVID has died down. Yes. Thing is, I can only get 65 inches in here just because of the way the staircase works. So,
sorry.
Obviously, I said so.
You can only get 65 inches in for the most of us, Phil. That's quite the length.
Yeah, trust it'll lower at that level. But yes, 75 and above. If we can get hold of them, we will do that. It's normally a case of going out to cover the larger sized TVs, but obviously with COVID and everything, the plan this year was for Ed to go and do lots of
enormous home cinema systems, but it's just not.
It just hasn't happened just because of COVID. So we'll have a look at that again when things change in the future. I mean, Steve can take the bigger screens in if we get offered them in the meantime, can't you, Steve? So we've always got.
The reason we haven't offered any of the large screens because no one's been shipping them out, have they?
No, that's it. Again, 75-inch and above, they're expensive sets. They've got to be handled by a courier. These things get dropped. It's a lot of money if they get damaged and so on. So that's another reason why the larger screens don't get sent out on a regular basis. And when they do, it usually means flight cases and everything else, doesn't it, Steve? And that's just, if you ever had to deal with flight cases, if you've ever been in a band or anything like that and dealing with these things, they weigh an absolute ton. It doesn't matter what's inside them.
It makes something that's already quite big even bigger.
Yeah. Right, Steve, any questions that you've found there before we wrap up?
No, I think
we've
done the
basically
main
There's a
covered
few
it.
people asking where Tom is. He lost a fight with a rabbit, but he did send me a message to tell everybody that he thinks Back to the Future 3 is the best of the Back to the Futures.
Well,
No,
Back to the Future
that is a
2.
full podcast on its own, so let's not go there at the minute.
We'll
but-
come back to that when those discs come out.
Yeah, and we've got nothing else better to do. Gustavo asking the same question that got answered before. Yeah, keep your eyes on the homepage on Tuesday. There are announcements coming. We can't say any more because NDAs and all the rest of it. But yes, if you look on the homepage, you'll see that. Ed, did you see any questions?
No, I think I've actually, for once in my life, largely answered the questions that have been put to me in a way that is probably intelligible to at least 50% of the people that asked them.
Yeah.
There's some comments about disc soundtracks falling off a cliff at 30 hertz, to 40, 50 hertz, even in some cases. As Nigel Henry rightly points out at the start of Blade Runner 2049, though, shed loads of bass there. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Although
All the
Nigel,
bass.
don't buy the 4K box set of Game of Thrones. You know it ends up being crap at the end. So what is the point?
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Also, son of SJ, he's going to Krakow for 3 days, accompanying an ex-girlfriend on her late 55th birthday trip. Top agenda to visit Auschwitz. That'll be a laugh then, won't it?
Well, it's never. It's still one of the most profound places I've ever been in my life. Yes, it's not a laugh a minute, but I think everyone should go. You should remind yourself that it can happen, and
And if you forget, it will happen again.
And if you forget, it will happen again. So yeah, everyone should go to Auschwitz at least once.
Yep.
But yes,
Okay.
it's not a laugh a minute.
No, and I've been through the chat window and nothing's popping out. So if we have missed a question and it's important, then highlight it again, and we will come back to it on next week's podcast. But sadly, we have run out of time tonight. So Kaz, competition for the podcast.
Yep, to win a copy of Sonic the Hedgehog on Blu-ray, use the following question to select the correct answer. Which of these is not a sonic power?
Okay, so that's your podcast competition. Nice and easy. Go and figure that one out. And again, thanks to Pulp Fiction, Condo 007, Fergie B, and Stevie DR for your donations tonight. It is appreciated. Like I say, if you want to do that during the week and ask questions and so on, you can do streamlabs.com/AV forums. Or if you want to become a patron, you can do that through patreon.com/AV forums. That's it for the podcast this week. My thanks to Steve Withers.
See you at the party, Richter.
Ed Selley.
No wonder you're having nightmares. You're always watching the news.
And Kaz Harlow.
You are not you, you're me.
If you enjoyed the podcast, please give us a like. It's really important to hit that like button, even more important than the bell. If you are still around and listening at the moment, then please hit that like button. It does help us. It helps the video get found through search engines and so on, and brings more people in to watch us. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the bell, because if you hit the bell, you'll be notified every time we publish a new video. And you can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. You can bookmark avforums.com for latest reviews, news, and videos. And of course, you can leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes, but only if you enjoyed the show. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.